An article I wrote, Deception of the Ages, about the churches, how the system was supposed to be set up according to God's laws. And if you look at how it was supposed to be compared to what we have now, that's why we're in such a mess. And I was just going through that article last night, getting stuff ready. I'm coming out with the second book. I've grabbed a bunch of articles off the site and getting them edited and putting them in the second book because people scream they hate reading the sites all day long. And you know, I was looking at that all over again, how our system is actually supposed to be set up compared to what it is now.
That's true, and there shouldn't be any adulteration of the food or genetic engineering. It's pretty clear. Weights and measures should be honest, not this crazy fiat money. It should be based on something solid.
Oh, I know. And no interest on money lending.
Yes.
No usury.
Yes.
And how that was set up was that the rich people of the Jews, and this is where it all started, and I'll try to just quote it off the top of my head here, but the rich people of the Jews were responsible in the fact that everything was shared amongst them as a nation, national wealth. And if somebody was having a hard time and they needed a loan to get by, they would go to the richest of amongst the Jews and get a loan from them. And they were required to loan them money. And they loaned it to them without interest. And they had 7 years to pay that loan back. And if those people that had borrowed the money just to get by couldn't pay the loan back, then it was forgiven. They didn't have to. And that is what infuriated the rich people, those of the rich of the Jews. And that's where greed came in. That's where the Pharisees came in. Because they were furious, first of all, that they had to loan their money out, and then that they couldn't charge interest, and then the debt could be forgiven. And so they're losing more of their money. You know, they're losing their money in giving people out loans. And the whole greed thing came in, and that's where the whole system started being destroyed. And that was the first thing that the rich people, which, you know, with the Pharisees and Sadducees, started manipulating the law of God and started putting the people under oppression and started moving them away from the truths of the Torah and started introducing the Talmud instead, because then they could manipulate the Talmud into being what they wanted it to say.
It's so sad.
Yeah. And I don't know, you got on my website, TalmudLies.com. Put that one up last week, IslamLies.com.
And there are quite a lot of Torah-believing Jews who live exemplary lives, the best that they can, but they don't get any of the publicity. Yeah,
and there's a good remnant of them in Israel. Today, there's a good remnant of them there. They're just overshadowed by the Zionist New World Order Jews. You know, and they're just in the background, and they're persecuted just as much as regular Christians are for not going along with the New World Order program. You know, and so they're berated on the fact that they accept Jesus as the Messiah, which is a big thing over there because most of them don't. And then, you know, they're berated on the fact that they don't agree, you know, like us, Christians today don't agree with the New World Order. They don't agree with their Zionism. And so they get it on both sides out there. You know, it's a very small remnant of real Jews that are out there, but I hear from them. You know, last week when I did the show with Eric John Phelps, about 2 o'clock in the morning, my sites went down. And, you know, just under attack. They were down all night. And within that time frame, I was hearing from New Zealand, from Austria, from Hong Kong, letting me know that my sites were down. They couldn't hear my shows. So that was funny. And sometimes when your sites go down, the worst times is the best times because you can actually hear from others, other parts of the world that are actually listening to the show. They're listening to the archives to come on. Because they don't, you know, our time zones are so different. They just listen to it when they wake up in the morning or whatever. So it's pretty neat. There's people who's around it all over the world. His true bride is just everywhere. And I know the Church in America thinks that they have the monopoly on it, but you know, America's got to be the worst as far as falling into doctrinal error and apostasy. And this whole thing coming out, I'm not even some kind of you know, the tolerance push is coming. To where everybody's becoming more tolerant, and where sin is a dirty word, you don't mention sin. And there's a big push in the churches today for tolerance and unity.
Most churches are very much like that. It's more political and social, and there isn't much left that is actually biblical anymore.
Oh, yeah. You're not going to go and hear holiness or hell. That's too offending. You're going to hear how it gives them money, and then the Lord will increase it by 100-fold. That's what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to hear that it's rough being a Christian, that He doesn't always bless His followers and provide mansions for them to live into, and that they have a hard, because our home isn't here on earth. Our home is in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want us concentrating and focusing on the things we want here. He wants us, seeking Him for things that will last for eternity. And so people have their priorities all messed up, and then they wonder why the Lord doesn't answer their prayers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking for the wrong things.
It's true. So many people, too, their impression of the Jewish community does come through many of the wicked things that we see in the media and outrageous things we see in the papers. But there are so many people in the Jewish community whose whole focus is trying the best they know how to please God, and mindfulness of the blessings that they get every day.
Yep.
Very mindful of that. That's something a lot of Christians don't think about, that we just eat, and so often don't acknowledge. A lot of people do say grace, or even silently acknowledge the blessing, but most Orthodox Jews do constantly acknowledge each blessing. Even sometimes when very bad things happen to them, they say there must be some good in this, or there must be some blessing down the road, and they'll even thank God for things that aren't very understandable in the moment. And most of them have a list of typically 100 good things that they have to do each day. I suppose you shouldn't enumerate or count things, but it's nice to think, by the time I go to bed tonight, I should have done at least 100 good things, even if they're very small. Even if they're as simple as not getting angry with someone. And not too many Christian people do that today.
Well, they're very pious people.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Christians love the most is when they finally get out of the Protestant churches and they find a Messianic congregation.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels so much different.
Yeah.
When it feels right, and that was one of the twofold problems that the Lord showed me, is that Christians that are leaving the Protestant religion and getting back in the joining Messianic tabernacles and synagogues, and the fact that these same people are sitting up there quoting the Talmud.
Oh my!
And so, although it feels great, it finally feels like you're doing the right thing by getting out of the Jezebel churches. Then you're listening to these priests they're quoting from the Talmud.
Oh no!
And so that's what the Lord told me about that when I was putting up that Talmud Life site, because I had to hit two birds with one stone with that one site, not just teaching what the Talmud is, but teaching the Christians to know the difference as well, so they're not heading into leaving one pit for the other.
Yes, I'm so glad you put that up. There are so many dangers with the Talmud.
Yeah, and I've heard from people that are under that kind of instruction, giving me hints on what exactly the Talmud teaches, so I can put it on the site. And the same thing with the Islam Life site. I've heard from Muslims, people that get out of it, that'll give me hints on more stuff that isn't on, isn't included in research, what they believe or what they do and stuff. So people giving me hints and tips all the time of things that they've experienced or were told to learn or told to study.
I am really looking forward to some of the new things that you've mentioned that you'll be putting on in the next couple of months regarding ways that Christians can observe the feast days properly without all sorts